spiel about them. Do you think that the action New Zealand government is currently taking on climate change is sufficient and does justice to our future generations?
No way. In fact, I was making a point last night. We had a political candidates meeting down at the depot, which is a great example of a community group that's basically come out of nowhere, was reluctantly funded by the local government. The council has given them a bit of money over the years in use of premises. But one of the questions is why are you standing in this candidate and giving for it? We're not sure. And another question is why standing for the party? And one of the reasons I stand for the Green Party is because it pisses me off to hear this bullshit on the National and Labour. You know, I mean, the National Party is as close as you can get to being in denial about climate change as you can possibly do. And of course,
short of saying.
Yeah, and then you get this bullshit about how they're really concerned about the environment and our waterways. It's absolute crap. And just honestly, it just infuriates me. So when I sit there listening to the National Party candidate, who's Matthew Barry, who's an old-time radio journalist, she's got this amazing ability to sound fantastic. She's talking to a beautiful radio voice, but it's actually all just party line bullshit. And she's prepared to say it. And I just sit there and my blood starts to boil. And so, yeah, the current government is intent on bullshitting the community while doing as much as possible to hand as much wealth as possible to those who've already got it. It's as simple as that. And so they're not doing anything about climate change. Yesterday they released their environment policy, which I call the anti-environment policy. And two of the most incredible things that they're doing. One is extending the amount of delay before the emissions trading scheme has any teeth whatsoever, and that's a crock of shit anyway. And secondly, they're actually using government money to invest in irrigation. And what they don't say is that is to help farmers not manage water, but have more intensive agriculture. Doing things like ripping up our native scrublands and tuffers and putting down pastures, and totally understand.
So what would you push for in the next term if you were elected?
One of the key things that we would do is for climate change is take responsibility for what's under the soil in New Zealand. And, for example, the idea of mining lignite, which is dirty brown coal, and then shipping it off to China, is a classic example of what's wrong with the international economy. Because on the one hand, people are saying, oh, well, we're digging it up, but actually it doesn't contribute much to our greenhouse gas emissions. But on the other hand, people say, oh, China's one of the dirtiest countries in the world. Actually, per capita, their greenhouse emissions are very, very small compared to the majority. I mean, their standard of living in their GDP is actually quite low compared to many Western nations. But one of the first things we'd do is leave stuff in the ground. We'd stop the oil exploration bullshit that's going on at the moment. And we'd also want people to take responsibility. I mean, we would force people to take responsibility for their own emissions. Because, for example, as Jeanette Simons was saying just the other night, she's one of the founders of the Green Party, she was saying that the role of government is to enact legislation that changes behaviour. Full stop. If you go to Copenhagen, she was there for the summit. In the middle of Copenhagen, outside the railway station, there's a 2-kilometre parking space. But you don't see any four-wheel drives. There aren't any. Instead, it's full of bikes. Bicycles are the young. And of course, that fits into the whole issue again. One of the major health crises of our times is that we've got people who are obese, they've got a crap diet, and they're getting no active exercise. So if you take away their emissions by stopping them spewing fossil fuels into the environment using their vehicles, if you put them on public transport, you've actually got active transport because they have to walk or cycle to the nearest depot. So you actually solve several problems. And, the Green Party sees all of these as so that's the kind of stuff we would be doing.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay,
So, yeah, in your opinion, is the ETS in its current form an equitable system that delivers significant economic signals to emitters?
on the contrary, it actually delivers significant economic advantages to emitters. That's one of the main problems with the Green Party opposed. Well, we're on the select committee of the Labour Party's emissions trading scheme, and we've tried really hard to make that a meaningful agreement. It's all based on the Kyoto Protocol, and at that Kyoto summit, New Zealand argued that the forests that we planted in the 90s should be given as carbon credits to us. But at the end of the day, we're going to chop those forests down when they mature in the 20s and 30s of the century. And so at that point, New Zealand is going to have absolutely massive carbon bills. We haven't worked out what to do with it. So the national policy, the national government, as soon as they came in, they replaced the Labour Party's emissions trading scheme with their own, which in effect encourages people to lobby government. And we've seen a classic example of that yesterday, where the government is now delaying the implementation of the ETS. It's actually a totally ridiculous system, and so we get rid of it.
What are your opinions on the expansion?
Because there's another bit, which is what changes will you advocate?
Well, I assume that getting rid of it was...
Well, actually, what I wanted to say is we would replace it with carbon tax, because one of the compromises that an ETS makes is that puts carbon as a saleable product on the international market, which means that people can go and will buying and selling it. And one of the huge issues that we face among the wealthy nations is that there are too many people creating wealth without creating jobs. Whereas in the old days, if you had, say $1 million and you wanted to make money, you'd build a biscuit factory in Parnell. 100 years or so ago, you might just put it on the share market, and then every now and then sell the shares, get dividends and that kind of stuff. But these days, it's possible to speculate on things like the future change in the price of copper, for God's sake. And so there's a whole lot of wealth generation that isn't creating jobs, and it's a massive problem. So yeah, we would want to put in carbon tax instead of an emissions trading scheme, and then as well as that, we would actually distribute the dividends to the electorate on a per capita basis, so that people would actually get from, in effect, through the Crown, ordinary everyday person would get the pollution money that big businesses have to pay, big polluters have to pay. And the advantage is, because it's on a per capita basis, is that when you give $1 to someone who doesn't have very many dollars, proportionately it boosts their income quite significantly.
No, I actually, that's the first I've heard of that. It sounds like a great idea. We'll move on to the third question. What are your opinions on the expansion of fossil fuel industries in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Do you personally support the call for a 10-year moratorium on new coal and lignite development?
Yeah, definitely. The international debate goes like this. And I heard Lord Sir Nicholas Stern talking about this. And he was the guy, you probably know the Stern Report. Yeah. It's very, very simple. Since the Industrial Revolution began, economic development has been based on fossil fuels. And so whenever the economies develop, we've polluted more. All we've got to do is sever the link between fossil fuel use and economic development, and that's where the Green Party is very strong. And that's where new tech and green technology comes in. And it's so important for people like you guys to be driving this debate. Because we need to leave stuff in the ground. When Pākehā came to New Zealand, one of the first things they did was extract stuff. First it was seal skins, and then it was coal, and then it was kauri, and whatever it was. We've actually got to get beyond that extractive approach to our environment. Our our relationship with the environment isn't just economic. It's also emotional, spiritual, and as well as that, it actually frames what the economy does. The economy has to be a subset of the environment. You can't just dig up the whole land. So I think it's tragic that we're still looking at a fossil fuel industry-based economic growth. And it's a scam. I think that the National Party should be ashamed of themselves, and you guys need to shame them somehow. Probably the second to engage in them.
Yeah, that's
10-year moratorium, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, I'm not sure. But we basically should be leaving coal in the ground. One of the key things that Stern says is that there's going to be a very difficult adjustment period, partly for people who've already got massive investments in old technologies and fossil fuels, and they are going to hurt financially, and therefore they're going to drag their feet, and that's what we're seeing at the moment.
What do you see as the main future sources of energy for New Zealand? Electricity, transport, and heating.
We've been blessed in New Zealand with our massive hydro schemes. I know they've done a lot of environmental damage, or at least had significant environmental consequences. And so, I'm basically of the opinion that we shouldn't put in any more hydro schemes. I actually think wind farms will be a really important source of energy. But I'm also really interested in what we can do in the marine environment, partly through things like the turbines in the Hokianga. I mean, again, there's some very significant issues around how we protect the environment in the taonga, that is the Hokianga, for example, fish migration and breeding and all that kind of stuff. So, in a way, there aren't any easy answers, but we've also got huge potential for solar power in New Zealand. We've also got massive potential for generation for biofuels, with things like enzymes from lichen and all that kind of stuff. So there's some huge potential there, and we've definitely got to invest and foster creativity. For transport, I'm like I say, I've had a car, love driving, love freedom, but I see it as a basic privilege. Active transport is the solution in public transport, and so the Green Party policy generally is to invest more in public transport. But also, personally, I would like to legislate, make it more uncomfortable. I mean, one of the first cars I ever had was a Morris 8, built in 1948. If you look at American cars of the same period, they're absolutely massive. And the difference is the regulatory framework. In the UK, they've always had very tough restrictions on the size of the motor and all that sort of stuff. And basically, that's because the streets in England are tiny, whereas the streets in America are huge. So going back to Copenhagen, where you see the car parks are full of bicycles outside the railway station. You go down here, and we've got kilometres of car parks with the ferry. And most of them are huge, massive cars. We don't need massive cars on the road. So for me, active transport and public transport are absolutely integral part of the solution. For heating, one of the great achievements of the Green Party has been getting green logic into the heads of the National and Labour government. And in fact, it was a scheme pioneered by Genesis Farmers. The idea that in the Warmer Homes program, which Labour took credit for and now National is taking credit for, and National are even driving it now, which is fantastic. But basically, if you've got people living in cold, damp houses, you're going to get health problems that the community has to pay for. They're going to be using more electricity and gas than they need to use anyway. So the early investment in an environmentally friendly policy that's also people friendly actually pays dividends for the entire community.
And so you'd support the call for government to create an action plan to attain 100% renewable energy before 2050?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, I think that my personal philosophy is in this area is pretty much summed up by the idea that we're tenants in our children's property, basically. We've got to leave not just a massive bloody nest egg, not maximise the money that you live in the kids, but actually optimise the environment you live in the kids. So again, the actual figure, 100%, 99%, I'm not so sure. I mean, ideally, we could do it before 2050. It's actually a question of having the political will. And one of the reasons the Green Party has taken, we've steadily climbed in our electorate over the years, but one of the reasons it's taken that long is because we develop policy that's good for the economy, good for the community, good for the environment, and not good for our electorate vote. So we've slowly built up credibility. And one of the main things that we want to see is political will and realistic political debate about exactly this kind of stuff. So yeah, I support 100%.
Great. Do you think that the government should be doing more to promote research development of low carbon and more sustainable technologies in New Zealand?
Yep, absolutely. And the first thing, one of the things that makes me really mad at the moment is the way the government is going on about investing in these rates of national significance. $13 billion, $16 billion going into roads that are basically going to be obsolete before long, certainly. And they're also doing things like suppressing information. I came across recently there's a group called Save Our Rail, and they've actually had to use the Official Information Act to get a report out of government coffers that says that rail being replaced by more trucks on the road is going to cost the country $600 million a year. And this was a report that the government commissioned in order to make a decision about putting in rail license. So why did they press it under the Official Information Act? That's bullshit. So anyway, one of the first things that we would do is actually invest in research and development and deployment. And we would do it urgently. And in fact, there are many active members of the Green Party who are involved in exactly this kind of research. And so it's certainly possible that we can come up with more stuff. But one of the key things is that we haven't invented the future yet. A lot of the technology is just beyond our reach. It's absolutely imperative that we invest in this kind of stuff and give incentives. Startup capital is an article in the paper today about how the Singaporean government has a capital investment that actually invests in things that are good for the environment. So there's heaps of models that we can be using in New Zealand, and one of the problems of the National Party is that they're trying to say that all the debate is about what they're saying. It's a frightening attempt to shut down the really important discussion. So I really think what you guys are doing is brilliant. It's absolutely imperative that your generation grabs this thing and says it's our fucking land.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So question 6. What do you perceive as do you perceive New Zealand's dependence on oil as a risk to our economy in the age of high and increasing oil prices? And do you support the reallocation of spending on new roads towards low carbon and public transport initiatives?
Yeah, well, I'm glad I didn't say this already, and you probably know it, but New Zealand's dependence on oil is a massive risk because the debate is basically both about when peak oil is going to be. The International Energy Agency has now said that peak oil was in 2006, and that they say that we would need 2 more Saudi Arabias to make up the shortfall over the next few years. We're facing a massive issue, partly because the old sweet oil has been extracted, and the oil that's still in the ground, and most of the existing oil is dirty oil, like the tar sands in Canada. And the main issue there, apart from the environmental damage, is that it actually costs a hell of a lot more to extract the oil from the sand than it does from pulling it out of the ground. And so fuel oil is going to keep on going up and up and up. It's going to cause a huge problem for the whole world economy. And so it's a terrible risk for us to take. One of the exciting things about this little cinema of ours is that New Zealand is an innovative, creative hotbed of ideas. Back in the 30s when the Labour government came, we were called the social greenhouse of the world or something like that. We've got so much potential to show the world how to minimise dependence on oil. And we need to do it. I mean, lots of great initiatives like using old cooking oil for diesel and all that kind of stuff. In fact, the guy who invented the diesel engine, his name was Diesel, funny enough, he originally was faced with the dilemma of whether to develop it for vegetable oil or mineral oil, and he decided that mineral oil was probably going to be advantageous for it. But actually, you can easily adapt a diesel engine to run on.
These are samplers of Shrek. Literally, this is called Shrek. They're green smoothies now. Okay. Because you're green patty, you should actually drink green smoothies.
Okay, yeah, great.
And they're really bloody good for you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And you've got raw greens in there.
It looks like rummy pesto. Good, thank you.
Thanks.
Ginger is what you can taste.
Oh, yum. Cheers.
Cheers.
So yeah, totally. I personally am the Green Party in writing. And one of the great things about the Green Party is that it's actually the members who develop policy. We have a protocol where members are invited to contribute to policy. Anyone who's really informed or keen on the subject can drive a policy development. Then we consult experts on every subject area, and then we workshop it again, approve it across the whole party, and then we publish it on our website. So we've got shitloads of policy on this kind of stuff. And it's just common sense. It's absolutely green logic to reallocate spending from new roads towards public transport.
That's right. So, what action?
We've got kids walking past during school hours. Active transport, that's exactly what we need more of. We need some more adults getting back into the joy of walking and cycling for them.
That's what we're starting. Hey, so last couple of questions. Question 7. What actions, if any, would you take on in your electorate to enable the community to increase our understanding of climate change and to reduce our emissions and dependence on oil?
Good question. I've personally been part of the Lake Road Cycleway development. I'm part of the Cycle Action Movement. We've got some strong advocates over here. I cycle almost daily. It's my main transport. And it's been a fairly hot argument actually about the cycleways. So certainly the issue of emissions and dependence on oil has come up in the electorate. But it's certainly something I could do more about. One of the we've got a few ideas, and one of them is basically just on the verge of illegal, so I did not do that. But certainly a big part of the green argument for this electorate, which basically goes up to Marine Bay and across the motorway, is that we need more feeder buses going across to the bus lane. The bus lane's been pretty fine for them actually. But it's actually, like you getting in from Epsom, it's actually really hard to get to the bus station unless you've got a car. So again, it's one of those half-baked things. the Green Party's got a transport launch on Monday, and so I'm going to be down on the wharf again, handing out more letters. And it's actually about our investment in public transport and reducing our personal emissions and dependence on it.
Great. And we'll just, the last question just sums up a lot of what Generation Zero is about. How can young New Zealanders convince the government to take stronger action on climate change?
You need to demonstrate the ability to live a low carbon equivalent lifestyle. That's a very important thing. Voting with your wallet, and that sometimes feels when you're young like you haven't got much of a wallet. There are some very, very important, very sensible things that the government needs to do. For example, encourage people to live closer to where they work. Simple. You could initiate some kind of communication bombardment, an old-fashioned letter writing campaign. But one of the main things that you're going to need to do is actually access the opinion leaders, and unfortunately most of these are lobbyists. For example, the Road Transport Association is a major donor to both National and Labour parties, and that's a big part of the reason we've got $13 billion going into new roads of national significance. So somehow or other you're going to have to start a relationship, that's what I suggest, with some of those lobbyists, the Road Transport Association. And there's a hell of a lot of very intelligent engineers who are knowingly engaged in public works programs like the Road of National Significance. Not exactly against their will, but against their better judgment. If you were able to get in amongst that community, you've probably got a few engineers in your group. Cycle Action, for example, is full of engineers and also full of medical people. A lot of the senior medical staff up at the local hospital live in the city. Come across on the ferry and bike up there every day. Why? Because biking is really good for you. It's also really convenient, really pleasant, and it minimises your carbon footprint. So there's a lot of very intelligent people engaged in the community, which we often look at and think, that industry is a problem. So I'd encourage you to try and take on a relationship with the Road Transport Association. Big ask, but you will be able to find some very concerned people who can speak their language, even if they're not Generation Zero. You'll be able to find very senior people who can speak on your behalf, and I'm convinced that there will be a lot of people wanting to support you. And again, the other main way to convince the government, of course, is to convince the electorate, because this government is showing it's got no guts. It's not prepared to take leadership when it's required. For example, the emissions trading scheme, or the capital gains tax. Dozens of examples where this government is refusing to take the advice that is available internationally and things like raising the retirement. They just haven't got the guts to do it. So if you can convince the electorate, you will convince the government. And convincing the electorate is a pretty slow process, but again, you actually need to be able to take a stand and convince people that you are able inheritors of what's going to be left behind. And I think it's really exciting. I think it's a brilliant initiative, and it's very, very important that you do it. And of course, there will be periods of growth and collapse and everything in your organisation's development, but you can become a phenomenal political force. And I
Great, thanks, Peter. Thanks for your time. And the video should be up on the website soon.
Cool.
So thanks a lot.
Have you seen the movie Stupid?